Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari. Krishna is the lover of Radha. He displays many amorous pastimes in the groves of Vrindavan. He is the lover of the cowherd maidens of Raj, the holder of the great hill named Govardhan, the beloved son of Mother Yashoda, the delighter of the inhabitants of Raj, and he wanders in the forests along the banks of the river Yamuna. This is the prayer towards our teachers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. The universe embraces each one of us, yet we can be so blinded by darkness. Because our true teachers guide us with the torchlight of knowledge, our eyes can be opened to the power and sweetness of illumination. Therefore, let us bow down to all those who guide us on our spiritual path. This is the pranams of Srila Prabhupada. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Putale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. And here a poem I often read by Surdas. I offer my obeisances to my spiritual master who gave me beautiful Kantimala, effulgent tilak, the beautiful form of a devotee, and who offered me his shelter. In one of his hands he is holding my hand, and with his other hand he is holding the lamp of knowledge, which helps me to cross over the dark ocean of the material world. Surdas says my guru deserves the greatest respect because only he can rescue one in the blinking of an eye. I bow to him again and again and again. With that, I would like to ask for the blessings that anything I say is actually worth your attention and time and ears. And also with that, I'm going to proceed into reading the verses for today. It's Srimad Bhagavatam, the cream of the Vedic knowledge, Canto 10, Chapter 74, verses 16 and 17. Now, help my senses with these. Righty, I hope everybody can see this. So I'll read the translation, then I'll read, the other verse. Actually, I will read also Sanskrit. Ajayan Maharajam Yajaka Deva Varchasaha Rajasuyena Vidhivat Prachatasam Iva Marahal. The priests as powerful as gods, with a small g, performed the Rajasuya sacrifice for the king Yudhishthir in accordance with the Vedic injunctions, just as the demigods had previously performed it for Varuna. Okay, 17. Sutyahanya vanipaloj yajakan sadasaspatin apujayan mahabhagan yathavatsu samahitaha. Synonyms: Sutya, of attracting the Soma juice, Ahani, on the day, Avanipalaha, the king, Yajakan, the sacrifices, Sadasaha, of the assembly, Patin, the leaders, Apujayat, worshipped, Mahabhagan, greatly exalted, Yathavat, correctly, Susamahitaha, with grateful attention. This is translation and purport by exalted disciples, followers of Srila Prabhupada. On the day of extracting the Soma juice, King Yudhishthira properly and very attentively worshipped the priests and the most exalted personalities on the assembly. Srila Prabhupada writes in Krishna, according to the Vedic system, whenever there is an arrangement for sacrifice, the members participating in the sacrifice are offered the juice of the Soma plant, which is a kind of life-giving beverage. On the day of extracting the Soma juice, King Yudhishthira very respectfully received a special priest who had been engaged to detect any mistake in the formalities of sacrificial procedures. The idea is that the Vedic mantras must be enunciated perfectly and chanted with a proper accent. If the priests who are engaged in this business commit any mistake, the checker or referee priest immediately corrects the procedure, and thus the ritualistic performances are perfectly executed. Unless it is perfectly executed, a sacrifice cannot yield the desired result. In this age of Kali, there is no such learned brahmana or priest available. Therefore, all such sacrifices are forbidden. The only sacrifice recommended in the Shastras is the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. I really appreciated that name of a referee priest, like something that we can truly envision and connect with. So I'll stop sharing here and go into commentary. So just referring to the previous verse, it struck me to hear that the priests were described as powerful as demigods, and even to the verse it is, and I really felt like that point was also very important, which was that the Rajasuya sacrifice is such an elaborate sacrifice outside of already many elaborate sacrifices which require so much knowledge, perfect pronunciation of Sanskrit, perfect rhythm of chanting the mantras, remembering the mantras, everything that is involved in that. And there are so many details involved in those sacrifices. And because the Rajasuya sacrifice was previously performed by demigods for the pleasure of Varuna, that's also the connection that the priests essentially are standing on the same line of empowerment as the demigods, which already speaks about how elevated that practice is. And to speak also, just to give context, what is Rajasuya sacrifice? In especially speaking about this context of King Yudhishthira, it's a sacrifice that establishes King Yudhishthira as a supreme king of all lands. And it's a way of unifying the kingdoms under his rule, and recognizing him as a divinely chosen and fully aligned with the will of the Supreme Lord. So it's not an easy task. And it's actually done while Krishna is present. And that, of course, means that King Yudhishthira already has the blessing of the Supreme Lord. And still, while having this blessing, King Yudhishthira still chooses to conduct the ceremony. And that I also felt was an important relational dynamic between King Yudhishthira, the assembly of the devotees and other rulers, and the Krishna himself, which is that even with the blessings already present, he chooses to perform the ceremony, and that points to really wanting to honor the ceremony and the customs of that time. And it also shows like the importance of the rules and regulations, even though they are, we follow also rules and regulations, and even though they are to guide us to a specific goal, in and of themselves also they're very powerful and way of protecting ourselves and serving. And so they are not to be abandoned, but rather infused with a feeling and with a connection to the divine. And so again, that was a powerful reminder for myself that we are actually blessed to have ceremonies or to have rituals that we are offered and rules that come with them as a way of also entering into deeper meditations and still keeping them intact. Also, more of the context, Krishna encouraged King Yudhishthir for the yagya, and the Rajasuya sacrifice happened prior to the battle of Kurukshetra, which we, I hope, all know about. And through that sacrifice, because it's such an elaborate happening, the Duryodhana was witnessing the power and the respect that Pandavas amassed through the performance of Rajasuya sacrifice, and through that he became, or because of that arrangement, he became jealous of their opulences, and essentially how brilliant and how illuminated they were through the connection to the divine. And because of that, because of his jealousy, he invited King Yudhishthir to a dice match, which Krishna advised against participating in, and still King Yudhishthir did. And through that dice match, he lost everything and were exiled for 13 years with his dynasty. And one of those 13 years was living fully incognito, essentially almost like living under the ground, not being visible at all. And so after those 13 years of exile, the Pandavas return, and Duryodhana refuses to give them back their kingdom. And that's how the Battle of Kurukshetra ensues or starts. And so then we can kind of put together all those happenings, although they are still divine, so they're in one way happening all the time. On the other side, there is the sense of chronology for us to even be able to understand them. So I was also thinking, again, going back to the Rajasuya sacrifice, how it's mentioned that the perfection of the priests, which is something that we can still aim for, that sense of really honoring Sanskrit, really honoring mantras, really honoring what's passed down to us, and trying our absolute best to follow it and to do it as perfect as we possibly can. And at the same time, also, as we're hearing about the mention of Kali Yuga, there is that recognition that the faculties that those priests use to engage with spiritual practice were simply at a completely other level than what we are having access to in the present circumstances. And so that brought me into remembering the four defects, as it's mentioned, that we carry. One of them is that our senses are faulty, and so that we actually cannot necessarily trust them. There's a lot that we can be given through our senses, a lot of information or even learning that we can receive. And at the same time, they are not objective and they are not able to give us and information that we can fully trust without double checking with other sources. Hence, we need to constantly be questioning what we are perceiving and try to, in a way, purify it or spiritualize it and frame it with the knowledge of what was passed down to us with people who know more than us. Again, recognizing that we are very limited in perceiving. The second defect that we carry is that we are prone to make mistakes. And that's closely connected to having faulty senses because we are having limited information combined with a bunch of conditionings and perceptions on things. We tend to make mistakes. Then the next one is we have a propensity to cheat, which is there, often also even simply coming from a sense of insecurity or believing that we need to acquire despite having a specific level of what is given to us or what we can easily attain and all these things. There are various reasons why, but nonetheless we have a propensity to cheat and we can become illusioned. Um, Meaning essentially living in or acting from a place of untruth. And so I also just wanted to bring that to remind ourselves that this is what we carry, this is what we are working with, but it doesn't mean that we are not um, able to engage our senses, even though they're faulty, or engage our faculties um, in service of the Lord, despite all these defects that we have. And in that way, as an offering sacrifice, as a simple definition, means giving up something higher, something for something higher, um, which is something that we definitely are familiar with. And it also requires, if we are to truly tap into the benefits of the sacrifice and wanting to achieve the aim of being closer with the Lord and all these things, it requires our absorption to be truly pleasing, um, which is why we are asked to engage all our faculties, all our abilities, um, our senses in service of the Supreme Lord as an offering. And so, in that way, um, a sacrifice is this gift which maybe has a higher price in a way that we actually feel like we are truly giving and giving something up, which also points to a potential for it to actually bring us closer in the relationship with the Lord and his devotees. And so clearly what's mentioned in the purport is how chanting of the holy name is our main sacrifice that we are encouraged to take up. And this is really a focus of our lineage, which is also sweet for me to remember and remind myself of that this is exactly what Lord Chaitanya requested of his associates, to bring the holy name to everybody without discrimination of their qualifications or the lack of it. And truly, we are not qualified to receive the holy name, and still, through the mercy of the Lord Chaitanya, through his deep desire from within the heart to serve the creation by offering the holy name freely and without really discrimination. This is what connects us again to the lineage. And so we can again remember about Lord Nityananda, Haridas Thakur, really sweet, close friends, really hard brothers in service. They would be truly going from home to home or requesting so many people on the street anywhere, begging, truly begging people to chant the holy name, knowing that this is their greatest opportunity, this is their greatest fortune. And if they don't come for them, again, without that discrimination of qualification or not, they would not be able to receive the holy name. And this is also what links us together as a spiritual tradition, as a spiritual family, the reception of the holy name. This is what we receive both through, again, the grace of Lord Chaitanya and through the empowerment of the spiritual master in the initiation And so even again in our movement of Srila Prabhupada, that again he started on behalf of Lord Chaitanya, his spiritual master, despite having quite many teachers in our movement, still every single one of them gives us an incredible gift of the holy name, the Maha Mantra. And so that's the sacrifice that we are invited to participate in, to truly have a relationship with. And with that, I want to sing a incredible song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And again, he is one of our acharyas who offered this incredible service of translating very high realizations of bhakti, connection to the divine, into a simple form of a song that and it can be even misleading if we are not sensitive enough to that. They are simple for our own sake, so we can actually understand or come closer to these deep realizations. So it's called Nadia Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. And so that's what I'm going to present for a moment. Nadia Godrume Nityananda Mahajan Patiyachana Mahajan Jivara Karana Shraddhavanjana Hai Shraddhavanjana Hai Shraddhavanjana Hai Shraddhavanjana Hai Prabhu Ragyai Bhai Magiye Diksha Bolo Krishna Bhajo Krishna Koro Krishna Shiksha Aparada Shunya Hui Loha Krishna Nama Krishna Mata Krishna Pita Krishna Dana Prana Krishna Rasam Sara Kuro Chariyana Chara Jiva Doya Krishna Nama Sarva Dharma Sara Nadia Godrume Nityananda Mahajan Patiyachana Mahata Jivara Karana. So here is a translation of what you just heard. In Nadia's Godrume, the great soul, Lord Nityananda, has opened a marketplace to sell the holy name to the conditioned souls. O faithful people, O my brothers, by the Lord's and sisters, by the Lord's command, I ask this charity of you. Please chant Krishna, worship Krishna, and learn and teach about Krishna. And of course, Krishna is also in the form of the holy name, and that's the focus of our movement. Chant Krishna's name without offense. Accept Krishna as your mother, accept Krishna as your father, accept Krishna as your wealth and your life. Give up all sins, make Krishna your whole world. Be merciful to all souls. Chant Krishna's names. That is the essence of all religion. And to me also, be merciful to all souls quite means really remember where you came from, because you were also gifted the holy name or the spiritual practice, guided by the exalted teachers and personalities without really necessarily having the qualifications or having earned that. And so remember that when you interact with others too. So this is the song I wanted to bring as also a way of truly remembering. This is the mood that we are invited and have an opportunity to cultivate, to remember how incredible it is to actually have a relationship with the holy name, to be able to chant it, to be able to gain realization through the relationship with the Lord in the form of his sacred names. And that also brings me to the beauty of simplicity, that again, coming back to the registry of sacrifice, there's so much complication there. And there is also a qualification to engage with such complication um, for the for the spiritual practice, for the pleasure of the Lord. And again, we are not on that level, and yet we are offered still an opportunity and a way to worship the Lord um, through chanting, hearing, and through feeling. Um, because again, the invitation to the practice is that we are um, to chant, hear, and feel, to stimulate the heart so it opens more and more, and we can experience a loving relationship with the divine, and all their extensions unfolding. And so, through that, through chanting of the holy name, we can situate ourselves in the world, again, perceiving the divinity everywhere, have that relationship, and really have an expansion and blossoming of the heart. And in this way, we can experience deepening, becoming more vibrant as actually gaining or regaining our life through deep nourishment in reciprocal connection with this sweet Supreme Lord and His beloved. And so the invitation is, can we actually try to catch the beauty and fortune that we are having a chance to experience? Because again, it may seem of such a simple practice that, and we are in a way already used to perceiving it as readily available. Perhaps most of us, before becoming devotees, have come in contact with devotees performing sankirtan or offering prasadam on the street, and that may even be like taken cheaply, but actually that's the extension of the mood of Lord Chaitanya. And just because it may seem accessible, doesn't mean it isn't actually an incredible gift, an opportunity, an arrangement of the Lord for us to come in contact with. And so I hope that the takeaway from this class is actually feeling like how fortunate we are to have the holy name, to be able to connect with an entire parampara, an entire tradition of the Supreme Lord and Lady through the form of chanting a Mahamantra. So I will end here, and I want to invite a discussion, reflections, questions, comments, corrections, anything that you would like to bring of yourself to the circle. Thank you so much for hearing me.
I'd like to see that devotee who would want to offer a correction to a class like that. Temple room.
Hare Krishna. Fantastic class. We delight to hear you glorifying Krishna and about the sacrifice of the holy name. The verses are about this elaborate Rajasiri sacrifice and how even with so much paraphernalia and so much pomp and ceremony, that there's a possibility that it might be done improperly and not get the good result. So then Prabhupada's devotees and Prabhupada tells us that in this age, the chanting of the holy name is a sacrifice. And we can remember, actually, we used to many times in the temples that every day we'd recite the offenses to the holy name to remind ourselves that even the sacrifice of chanting Hare Krishna, which is beneficial even for somebody who does it whimsically or offensively, it's still, there's some benefit there. But then the first offense is to blaspheme the devotees, to unnecessarily criticize devotees who have dedicated their life to the propagation of the holy name. And this counteracts the benefit of chanting. Second offense, consider the names of demigods like Lord Brahma or Shiva to be equal and independent of the holy name of Krishna. Third offense, to minimize or disobey the instructions of the spiritual master, or to consider the spiritual master to be an ordinary person. Right? Just hearing these offenses, even I've been reciting them for 50 years. I think, wow. To minimize or disobey the instructions of the spiritual master. Fourth offense, to blaspheme Vedic literatures, or literatures in pursuance of the Vedic version. To blaspheme the Vedic literatures or to blaspheme literatures and for the fifth offense, consider the glories of chanting holy name to be imaginary. The sixth offense, to give some mundane interpretation to the holy name. The seventh offense, to commit sinful activity on the strength derived from chanting the holy name. The eighth offense, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna to be one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in the Vedas for fruit of activity, karma kanda. To think we're doing this, the motivation is for our benefit, and it is there, but as a byproduct, that's not our motivation. We're trying to please the Lord. Eighth offense, and ninth offense to push,
instruct a faithless person. Instruct a faithless person
to go on instructing a faithless person about the intimate glories of the holy name. Of course, constantly we're instructing people about the glories of the holy name, but when we realize somebody is offensive, to go on preaching that is an offense to the holy name. Jesus said, don't cast your pearls before swine. A pig will not appreciate a valuable pearl. And the 10th offense, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It's also offensive to be inattentive while chanting. Anyone who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these offenses in order to properly execute the process and very quickly achieve the desired result, pure love of Krishna. And just hearing this, even I've heard it a million times. Every time I hear it, I go, right. Oh, yeah. So how can we, carefully guard against these offenses if we don't remember what they are? So it's good to recite them and execute the sacrifice of chanting the holy name without counteracting it by somehow or other neglecting or breaking these good advice that Srila Prabhupada is giving us. I'm sorry to talk so long, but I just felt right before I speak, Prabhupada told me what to say, and that came out. I couldn't stop it, So please excuse me if I talk too long. I'll go to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you so much, Adi Prabhu. That's such a beautiful contribution to actually, again, be reminded of the offenses to the holy name and how, even though it's such an accessible practice, we still need to do the preparation. We, in a way, need to put ourselves in the right consciousness to truly follow, and guard ourselves against those offenses. That really means a shifting of consciousness, shifting of our conditioning, and deeply sitting with our heart to have faith in our teachers and all these things. And that's like incredible. It again shows that we still need to prepare ourselves to like truly, fully, completely receive the holy name. And that just again reminds me how like fortunate we are to take up this practice. And when you mentioned even like the first offense of blaspheming devotees, it just reminds me like in a way a the other spectrum of that, like the balancing, which is like one is we are not to blaspheme the devotees, but what is the opposite of that? And to me, it almost feels like, can we actually see that like every single one of us came to the movement through like countless arrangements and pretty much like magic and mystery. Like truly, sometimes I look at all these and I'm just like, how many stories are here of like Krishna's hand in individual lives, guiding every single person towards him through so many different ways to just somehow or other end up together in the same cyberspace of the Bhagavatam class. It's quite mystical and it's amazing to just like even try to wrap the mind and heart around it. And so even if we like try to cultivate that, it's just like, wow, this person must have be touched by Krishna's hand by even being here in a temple with me, and how amazing that is. And that means they just are so loved. And of course, every jiva is so loved, but to even see them again in the same community is like they are so special. And somehow we are connected because we're in the same community.
Imagine having a classmate like Ananda Manjari or
So.
Das. Imagine, it's so much fun, right?
Thank
This
you.
is so cool.
I want to read a comment by Shikshashtakam Prabhu. During the 12 years of exile in the forest, they prepared for war. Arjuna performed penance and won the entire gamut of celestial weapons, divyastras, as boons from the gods. They spent the 13-year masquerading as peasants in the service of the royal family of Virata, the king of Matsya. So again, that's the reminder that even while the devotees of the dynasty were in the exile, they still were in connection with the Lord, still performing the penances and sacrifices, and essentially preparing them for what's next to come. So they, even though it must have been difficult in so many ways, they didn't waste that time, but actually really truly embraced what was offered to them, what was arranged for them in that way. So that's again a beautiful reminder. We also ourselves may go through decades of hardship, but we can still use that time to connect and do our best to prepare and step deeper into relationship with devotees and the Lord. Any other comments or questions? Or I actually would like to hear more comments and reflections, but my preference is not that important.
Is that Gora Sharan in the back there?
Yeah.
Floating in the air. Can you float over here, Gora Sharan Prabhu?
It's coming.
Oh, that was a chair. Oh, God.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Bro, thank you for putting me on the spot. Hare Krishna, Ananda, Manjari. Nice to see you after a long time. Hare Krishna. Yeah, I really appreciated the point that she was saying, how like we all have individually in our own lives the hand of Krishna, and so many stories are there. So yeah, it's very sobering to understand that yes, it's not just that people have randomly come into practicing bhakti. So much Prabhupada says, like Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, like gallons of blood to be able to make one devotee. So we are all products of mercy of so many devotees. So it is very important to remember that. So thank you for a very kind of a sober mode of goodness class. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Gaurasharan Prabhu actually is also one of my teachers. Like I took Bhakti Shastri with him teaching portions of it, and so it's very special to even have him listen. Thank you for your ear and heart.
Thank you. When the devotees are wonderful, wonderful. And I was trying to think of one devotee who is annoying. And I couldn't, several names came to mind, but then I thought, no, they're not really annoying. They're ecstatic. Maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe I was having a bad day, but they're wonderful. Even those who may seem to be acting a little bit, annoyance at times, still, it's ecstasy. Dealing with devotees is ecstasy. They were brought in our life by Krishna's inconceivable and merciful arrangement. And we should be appreciative and conscious of that. And just embrace the devotees. Throw ourselves into the association of the devotees, like Dale Gauranga Prabhu said one day. Thank Ananda Manjari for highlighting that point.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's what you're bringing is very actually sweet because it again reminds us of how special devotee association is. Or even like being in proximity to other practitioners, being reminded that like, wow, there are actually others who are also dedicating their lives to this pursuit. But again, to be also reminded, like even if someone may be exemplifying, all kinds of imbalances, and we also have our own imbalances, that also is such a reason to even go deeper into appreciation. It's just like, oh my gosh, we are all again so faulty and dealing with mixtures of craziness in so many different levels individually. And even through that, again, there's no material impediment towards service or towards attaining devotion. And so through all of those kind of individual, unique mixes of conditioning and stuff like that, this devotee or this group of devotees is still serving. And they may have their very specific challenges, and we can still appreciate that they are like genuinely trying. They're here, and it's ultimately between them and Krishna. And so that's our invitation to also perceive them lovingly and see like where are we actually lacking on if we are experiencing that lack of gratitude in those moments. Yeah,
Thank you, Ananda Manjari. So a follow-up question. You said that blaspheming the devotees is an offense. It says in the Shastra. And the opposite of blaspheming the devotees is what? I kind of missed it. What's the opposite? How do we counteract?
Well, what I
Maybe,
felt was the opposite was one is simply appreciation, but appreciation that deeply comes from the heart of even experiencing a sense of awe of just like this person ended up like is here with me. And they've must have gone through so many lives, so many experiences to just like end up in this position of actually picking up their spiritual practice, of devoting themselves to that in so many different degrees, but still it's so special. And to actually, in a way, access again inner gratitude, appreciation, and awe. That's how.
yeah, don't feel bad about that devotee. They were a rat in their previous life. And now look at them.
They actually, I was thinking about this was like one of my recent realizations, and it really hit me strongly. Just feeling like we we go through so many lives, and it's just like how special it is to even come to a life and like have an attraction towards the holy name or have an attraction towards anything related to devotional service. Like we don't even know how many lives it took to preserve that single moment or like object of attraction for it to be carried and to manifest itself in this life. What to speak of like us actually stepping onto the spiritual path. And so I actually feel like there are so many forces working upon us or influencing us that it's just very rare to actually witness coming to a spiritual path and dedicating ourselves to it. And it's just, again, so special. So, yeah, thank you for that. I think the darshan should be happening momentarily whenever Radha Moridar chooses to reveal themselves to us.
Jai, thank you, Ananda Manjari. Wonderful class.
Thank you so much.
Jagannath Priya Prabhu Hari Krishna. Thank you. Do you have a comment or are you standing up for darshan?
Darshan.
Darshan. Okay. Thank you, Ananda Manjari. Darshan time, everybody. Thank you for keeping your cameras on and off. Jeffrey Eckler. Jeffrey Eckler, stand up. Or get down.
Shri Radha Murida Gora Chandra Siva Bhagavan Ki Shri Bhagavan Ki.
Hare Krishna, welcome to the Afterglow. Has anyone heard of this past life regression? Has anyone done this? Yeah, Karen? How was it? What did they tell you? Who was Isaiah in his previous life?
I actually didn't know Isaiah, but I had a dad. And this world anyway. And what nature.
Hare Krishna, Isaiah.
I just mostly had I was kind of like a dream state, and I like she just kind of guided me to an experience. I don't know. I thought I was like a knight in a like Sir Lancelot kind of thing. But I don't know what to make of that experience, but I did have it done.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Can you see it?
Yeah, there's one story. I'm not sure if it's true or maybe it's just a story.
Yeah.
But there was one guru.
Okay, I'll mute it. I'll mute it.
Sorry.
I'll mute it, Mama.
There was one guru who had this mystical ability to reveal the person's past life. And he had disciples. And there was one disciple who was going through ups and downs in their spiritual life. He felt discouraged a little bit. He wasn't sure about his path. So he tried, he grew hair. That didn't help. Then he went on pilgrimage. That didn't help either. He became gluten-free. That didn't help. So he went to his guru and asked him, "Dear Guru Maharaj, can you do this past life regression on me? I want to know what is it that is holding me back. Maybe it's something from my past life, something that I could maybe mitigate on or work on. Maybe I can overcome this roadblock on my path that I feel so discouraged now." And the guru said, "Okay, all right." So he put him on the I don't know, massage table or something, and put him in trance, and revealed the disciple that he told him afterwards that you were a great saintly person who stopped practicing at the very high level. So in this life, you're continuing on, starting from this very high point. You were a great saint and you were a big time spiritualist. And this devotee, it helped him. He felt encouraged. He said, yes, I was a devotee in my previous life and I left off and I'm going to start where I left off. And he went on steadily for a decade or so. And then he went back to his guru to appreciate, to thank him for this past life regression. And he said, "Dear Guru Maharaj, thank you so much for revealing my past life to me. It helped me on my path so much." And then the guru told him, "Do you really want to know what was revealed to me about your past life?" And the disciple was like, "Wasn't I a great saint?" And the guru said, "Nope. If you really want to know, you were a pig in your previous life. You were a swine. But I told you you were a great spiritualist to encourage you, to lift you up." And he said, ultimately, it doesn't really matter who you were in what life. 40 lifetimes ago, you may have been, a bacteria or something. What matters is whether you are sticking to your practice, sticking to your guru, sticking to your association. What matters is what you're doing now in this life and where you're going from here. And then the disciple, that was the final stumbling, the final block, the final roadblock on his path. He got free from this attachment to his past life and moved on his path, being free from the predicament of his own mind. Just a little story. Hope you liked it. Yeah, Venisha has given us thumbs up. Thank you, Venisha. Okay, any reflections, please? Who was Bhima in his previous life? I wonder. A Kshatriya, for sure. Adipusha Prabhu was a merchant, a Vaishya. And he was computer illiterate.
I used to take care of the fence lines for the cows and the pastures at New Vrindavan. And when somebody said, what's your service? I said, I make a fence.
I've heard this joke so many times, but somehow or other I laugh every time Adi says it.
Not a joke.
Everything Adipusha Prabhu says, I've heard it 55 times, but I laugh every time. I don't know what it is.
You've got
He's ever fresh.
You have a poor sense of humor. That's why
Yeah. Yeah.
You're one of the few people that laughs at my jokes, even things I don't try to make a joke about, you laugh about.
Yeah, I'm just stupid.
Here.
That's the quality of a devotee, a pure devotee. He's ever fresh. And
Yeah.
it's like, I love hearing Prabhu's stories over and over again. For one thing, I forget them, so it works out good. And then, but then also it's that quality of devotees. I remember when Chedi Maharaj used to make the kitchery on traveling Sankirtan, and every day he made the same kitchery, but every day was better than the day before. I was amazed. I mean, how could that be? And then also another thing about Chedi Raj that was kind of similar was that when he passed, the devotees were all talking, and I kind of thought like I was Chedi's special friend, and then I realized he had like everybody felt that about Chedi, like he was treated them special, made them feel special.
Yeah.
Yeah. The kitchery is definitely better, but what happens is, Das, you were better. Because we're and Krishna's working on us, and we have a deeper and deeper appreciation because Krishna consciousness is progressive. It's not stale, stagnant. And how wonderful is Krishna?
What's that story, Adipusha Prabhu? And it's a day off, so we can go over time. What's that story where this devotee left his body and then the dog left the body and then the devotee left the body and you kind of figured out that that dog was that devotee? What's that story?
Well, Taru was initiated at the same ceremony as Radhanath Swami. He was very close to Maharaj. And he was a really amazing devotee, amazing kirtan, amazing classes. But he fell into difficult consciousness and actually took his own life. And then Kirtanananda Maharaj was given a dog, a German Shepherd dog that we call Gudikesh. And the dog was just really, really attached to Kirtanananda, and he would go with him everywhere. And he even went to India with him. And they went on the plane, and Kirtanananda put on dark glasses and got a harness like a blind person, so that the dog looked like a blind dog, because in those days you couldn't bring a dog on the plane. And then when he was in India, he was in Rishikesh, and there was this sadhu there sitting by the side of the road, and everybody said that he had mystic powers and he has Trikala Gyan. And when the dog and Maharaj walked by, he said, "This dog was with you before, and his name was Taru." I used to milk cows with Taru. We used to milk 6 cows every morning and 6 cows every night. So I was right with him. And I remember him saying to me one time, "We must become like the dog of the spiritual master." Prabhupada said, "We must become like the dog of the spiritual master." And I was just listening to Prabhupada tape where he said, "I am Krishna's dog," Prabhupada said. So when they came back from India, we heard that story, and I looked at Gudikesh, and he looked at me, and he had this smile, I was, "Oh God, that's Taru! Oh my God!" Because I knew him very well, and to see him in a body covered with hair and an animal body was like shocking. When that dog left his body, Marge used to have this little cabin at Silent Mountain, a stone cabin that Mahaprasad built for him, little 1-room cabin, and the dog was there with him. And the dog went out one day.
Yeah, I'm not buying it.
I'm not buying it.
Yeah, I'm not buying it.
Hold
We're not
on,
selling
Dima
it.
Prabhu. Please, don't ruin it for us.
Yeah,
Please.
You can buy it or not.
ain't paying.
It doesn't cost anything. So anyway, when the dog was leaving his body, he went out one day and he didn't come back. So they sent 2 devotees out to look for him, and they found him. He is so old, a gigantic body. And they picked him up in a blanket and they brought him back to the cabin, and he couldn't walk. And when he was just about to leave his body, he started rolling over from one end of the cabin to the other, and he went right by where Kirtanananda Maharaj was sitting, and he looked at Maharaj and he left his body. we were like seeing the dog struggling, couldn't even walk to get to the person who he had been inspired by and taken shelter of, and left his body like that. Anyway, that's what we heard. Believe it or not, we did hear it. And it was, I mean, I knew Toru very well when that dog looked at me. I was like, no, don't tell me this is true. Anyway, these things do happen. We do take birth again. And
Also, when you take your life, also, I'm just thinking that if you do take your own life, there's usually some kind of reaction, or I mean, so it makes sense. You had to take birth as a dog or something like that.
That's amazing that you could talk about somebody's life in speculation, Prabhu.
Whether you believe it or not, whether you believe it or not, people do take birth again.
You're speculating on a person's life.
You're
telling me that they came back a dog.
I'm telling you what I heard.
To be the servant of a so-called guru. I don't want to hear it.
It's okay. It's
You
okay.
have stories to yourself.
It's all that
We're
is in
talking
the
about
past.
the principle.
It's all
Whether or
in the
not it
past.
applies to this situation, the principle is there that we do take birth again.
Quote Shastra then.
That's Shastra. That you
No,
do
it
take
isn't.
the
It's
Hino
speculation.
Shunyatade.
Somebody told somebody, a sadhu by the side of the road, and the story came back around again, and a dog smiled at you. It's fucking,
Why not?
It's ridiculous.
Okay, this, if you believe the story or not, just accept the principle. That's what's important. That based on the quality of our consciousness at the time of death, we will get a particular reappearance. That's the principle. We're not arguing with that. You can believe or not believe that this was an application of that principle, but that's not important.
Yeah, the principle still stands. And that's like a little anecdote. Afterglow format allows that, hopefully.
I don't believe it. Okay, Hare Krishna, we love you, Bhima.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Yeah, it's been my dream since I was a kid to remember this life in my next life and come prank somebody, in my next body. I'll prank Bhima. Whoever I become, I'll come back to Bhima and prank him. So,
what do you think this life is all about, Prabhu?
Serving you.
Serving you, yeah.
It's all a big prank.
Yeah, true.
Bah, humbug. You ever hear that, Scrooge? Bah, humbug.
Yeah.
Anyway, we know that Krishna is wonderful and that he works perfectly.
Yeah, Krishna is wonderful. Hare Krishna. The devotees are wonderful. Thank you. Have a wonderful Monday, everybody. Don't get discouraged. And we love you. We love you. Hare Krishna.